Okay, so let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Flash presentations session. I'm Moussa Al-Kalbi. I'm a professor of physics at Aix-Marseille University and also a member of the EUA-CDE steering committee. So the Flash presentations session is intended to give the EUA-CDE members the possibility to address ideas and initiatives related to the key topics of this EUA-CDE Annual Meeting and share good practices at their institutions in short 5 minutes presentations. So 5 contributions were selected for this session from 5 universities, namely the Autonomous University of Madrid in Spain, the Catholic University of Leuven in Belgium, the Technical University of Berlin in Germany, and the University of Turku in Finland, and finally the People's Friendship University in Russia. So the session is organized as follows. I will introduce and give the floor to each of the 5 speakers to present their contribution. Questions to the speakers can be submitted via the question and answer section under the question mark icon on the left of your screen. And I propose to keep them until the end of the 5 presentations so that we can have a question answer session with the 5 speakers at the end. And this will have something like 20 minutes session for questions and answers. So let me now introduce the first speaker, Professor Javier Diaz-Nido. Before inviting him to open his microphone and camera to present his contribution. So Professor Javier Diaz-Nido is a full professor in the Department of Molecular Biology at the Autonomous University of Madrid, UAM, and has been a director of the UAM Doctoral School since 2016. He was awarded a doctorate in molecular biology from the UAM in 1988 and subsequently completed a postdoctoral stay at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory in New York in the USA. He has developed all his research work in molecular neurobiology with a focus on neurodegenerative diseases. He is a co-author of more than 80 publications in international scientific journals and a co-inventor of several patents. Since 2002, he has led a research group at the Center for Molecular Biology dedicated to the study of Friedreich's ataxia. And at the UAM, Professor Diaz-Nido coordinated the development of new study pathways in biochemistry and molecular biomedicine at bachelor, master, and doctoral levels. So, Professor Diaz-Nido's presentation is entitled Thesis Twitter Thread in a Context to Promote the Development of Scientific Dissemination Skills Among PhD Candidates. So Javier, could you please open your microphone and camera? The floor is yours. Let me just remind you that, and the other speakers, that you have 5 minutes for your presentations, and the bell will ring to indicate the end of the allocated time. So please, Javier.
Thank you, Masadek. I want to thank the organizers for the opportunity to present this initiative, the Thesis Twitter thread, that is a contest to promote the science dissemination skills among doctoral candidates and recent PhD graduates. Really, within the next slide, yes, okay. This is the well-known framework of transferable skills for early career researchers that was developed by Eurodoc. And in this framework of transferable skills is included communication skills. Communication skills, but not only the typical academic communication with colleagues, but also communication to non-technical people, which is very important for science dissemination. With these ideas in mind, the Spanish universities developed this spring a first contest of a thesis thread in Twitter, using Twitter. This was really an initiative of the network of the units of science dissemination and culture of the Conference of Rectors from Spanish universities, and was open to all Spanish universities. The main aim of the contest, from the point of view of the doctoral schools, was to develop the science dissemination skills in doctoral candidates, to take advantage of the social network, Twitter, and all of its possibilities as a communication channel. And a second objective of the thesis thread was also to promote the knowledge among general people of the research performed by early career researchers in universities. So in this contest, the doctoral candidates can tell society what they are researching, how they do it, why they do it, adapting the content of their thesis to a simple, accessible, and attractive language to convey the idea behind their thesis to the general people using Twitter. The rules of the contest were quite simple. Each participant can write only one thread related to their thesis, and this thread should not exceed 20 tweets. It's possible to use all kinds of elements to enrich the presentation of their work, to capture the reader's attention or make it more attractive. So it's possible to use links, emoticons, videos, images, animated GIFs, all the things that are allowed in Twitter. And in the first tweet of the thread, they have to quote to the sponsoring organisms, and starting with an open, with this sentence, in Spanish is abro hilo tesis, in English is open thesis thread. And these are really the basic rules for the participants. The evaluation criteria of the contest are mainly focused on two aspects. First, the expression and content of the Twitter thread. In this respect, is evaluated the use of simple language, avoiding all kind of technicalities, an informative language that allow easily the understanding of the contents of the research project, also the understanding of the research topic, and very importantly, to convey the importance of this research topic to a non-specialized public. It's also evaluated the methodology, the most relevant results, and the conclusions that are presented in an attractive way of the thesis. And also it's important the content of the research that must be accessible but rigorous, not trivial. This is very important aspect in science dissemination. And in addition to expression and content, the other criteria which is evaluated is the creativity, mainly the attractive use of these elements as emoticon, videos, images, to make the presentation more attractive, a presentation that makes the public want to know. So this spring, the first contest was performed. A total of 368 doctoral candidates or present PhD graduates from 40 Spanish universities participated in this first edition of the contest. During 3 weeks in April, the contestants made their thesis threads in a synthetic way, understandable. This was performed in Spanish or any other of the official languages in Spain. And a jury mainly composed by experts in science dissemination chose the 3 winners that receive an iPad for their winning the and as concluding remarks, we can say that we have encountered a high degree of satisfaction among the early stage researchers that were involved in the contest. They found the contest was very useful to develop their scientific dissemination skills. This is one of them. And also from the point of view of the science dissemination units of the universities, there is also a high degree of satisfaction because they found the contest very useful to make known to society the research carried out in universities. So we can say this has been successful. So the second edition will take place next year. And we are also thinking about other possibilities beyond the social network Twitter, perhaps another contest using Instagram with the same mechanics. This is all.
Yeah, thank you, Javier. Thank you for this nice presentation. This is a really very nice dissemination tool you have organized in Spain, and I'm sure that this will be, used in many other European countries and even largely. So we will discuss this at the end. So please, again, if don't forget to submit your questions or comments via the QA icon, the question mark icon on the left of your screen. So let me now, thank you again, Javier. Let me now introduce our second speaker, Ann Hutz from the KU Leuven, University of Leuven. Ann Hutz is a Senior Advisor of International Partnerships and Networks at the International Office of KU Leuven from 1989 to 2002 to this year. She had a special assignment as a coordinator for international policy of the Flemish Inter-University Council and was a Flemish representative at the Task Force on International Programs and Mobility in the Confederation of European Union Rectors Conferences from 1995 to 2000. She had several other responsibilities as head of the International Policy Unit from 2005 to 2014, and since 2016 she is registered as independent experts for European research and innovation to assist with the research and innovation assignments, including the evaluation of proposals, monitoring of projects, and evaluation of programs at the European Commission. She is, since this year, Senior Advisor on Joint PhD Policy at the Research Coordination Office at the Catholic University of Leuven. So Ann Hutz will tell us about the KU Leuven Global PhD Program and Europa Joint Doctorates, where institutional research policy and internationalization policy meets. So Ann, could you please open your microphone?
Yes, this is open, I think.
Okay, it's open indeed.
Yeah.
And so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Masadek, for the introduction, and good afternoon to you all, and hello from Leuven. What I indeed want to briefly illustrate today is how the introduction of two institutional programs through the international policy at KU Leuven adds to the visibility of and the attention to the joint doctorates on the overall policy level. I do this by focusing on the global PhD partnerships, the GPPs, and the UNA Europa joint doctorates in the context of the European University Initiative. What are those programs about? In the GPP, KU Leuven and its partners, and you can see them on the left side of this slide, jointly organize and fund a number of doctoral mandates. On the institutional level, policymakers of all those partner universities identify research areas and disciplines where interinstitutional collaboration is expected to lead to world-class performance in research and to co-authored publications of excellent quality. PhD candidates on those projects are jointly supervised by professors of 2 institutions, spend research time at 2 international locations, and graduate with a jointly awarded PhD degree. The UNA Herdok doctorate, on the other hand, runs in the framework of the UNA Europa European University and brings innovation into existing models for European doctoral programs. Participants engage in a joint doctoral program based on, again, joint supervision of the doctoral candidate by professors from 2 UNA Europa partner universities. You can see their logos on the right side of this slide. The students spend obligatory stays at several of those universities, and joint administrative structures are in place for admission, selection, supervision, and assessment. And since these 2 flagship initiatives are at the forefront of both the international and the research policy at KU Leuven, attention on the university level is guaranteed, and the scholars involved are part of a solid support system. Now, how do we notice this? The first element to mention is the policy decision to reinforce the collaboration between the doctoral schools and the Central Research Office. The Central Joint Policy Team, Joint PhD Policy Team, I should say, at the KU Leuven Research Office was strengthened. I moved, amongst others, from the International Office to the Research Office, and we received a mandate to exclusively focus on joint doctorates. At the same time, international virtual teams have been created between the partner institutions, making use of the virtual networks and the collaborative tools that were mentioned yesterday as so important in these COVID times, to analyze all organizational aspects of the cooperation and to solve any remaining hiccups. Within the GPP, regular bilateral open discussions are organized in order to make the program a success. And UNA Herdok is in the hands of the UNA Europa Doctoral Training Cluster, with representatives from all 8 UNA Europa members. Now, what exactly is on the agenda of those groups? Many of you will recognize the terminology that is mentioned here in the middle of the slide. These are the sort of discussions that invariably pop up when setting the scene for joint doctorates. The meetings of the teams definitely contribute to transparency and clarity about regulations and traditions in use at the various universities involved. To talk freely about these aspects among international colleagues and to look together for the most adequate way forward often triggers innovative ideas and approaches. Feedback to the various university leaders and teams assures enhanced attention for the topic of the joint doctorates at the policy level. In this way, policymakers can get useful tools at their disposal to make their flagship initiatives a success, not only just academically, but also administratively. And further down the road, the ad hoc solutions may prove to be applicable in a wider variety of joint PhD cases beyond these initial flagship programs. And consequently, all the joint PhD researchers will be, more than ever before, supported in their progress to graduation. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you for this nice presentation. And so I'll ask the participant to submit their questions on the Q&A icon on the left and we can discuss this topic at the end of the session. Let me now come to our third speaker, Daniela Klein-Berghoff from the Technical University of Berlin. Daniela works at the Technical University Berlin Center of Scientific Continuing Education and Cooperation, and is responsible for one flagship program of the Berlin Leadership Academy within the Berlin University Alliance. Besides, she manages the leadership program for junior professors at the TU Berlin. Before, she has managed the office of the Vice President for Education, Digitalisation, and Sustainability. Daniela holds a Master of Art degree in Classical Philology and also a Master of Science degree in Science Management. So she will tell us about lessons learned from urgent transition to digitalization of doctoral skills training. So Daniela, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome, Masadek. I will just prepare, since I'm going to share my screen due to some animations in my PowerPoint presentation. So here we go. I hope you're able to see what I'm going to tell you. So first of all, yeah, I'm going to talk about our lessons learned within our project, Training the Mindset, which is TU Berlin is part of together with Warsaw University of Technology, the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, and the Politecnico di Milano. First of all, I would like to start with our initial plan. We cooperated within the framework of transferable skills developed by Eurodoc, and developed a curriculum and a training manual, also some video tutorials, competent self-assessment tool, and a coaching manual for those involved in doctoral skills training. And of course, our initial plan was to have the concepts within the training manual tested on site. But then COVID-19 hit, and we had to change, and we had to go online rather quickly. Of course, this meant for us that all our concepts, our training concepts, had to be rewritten. Our schedule was totally overthrown, and this also meant some great efforts for our trainers and coordinators. We had to, as I already said, rewrite our concepts. We found that recruiting participants was partially more time-consuming, and it was rather difficult finding the right tools for online teaching activities due to divergent privacy rules within the universities. And of course, the timely effort for our trainers was really high for redesigning the on-site teachings to online teachings. But of course, there's also some pros we figured. There's no travel necessary. Our initial plan was also that from each university, participants were to travel to the hosting university. So this is, since going online, we do not have to travel, which is good for our carbon footprint. We have greater flexibility. As long as you have access to the internet, you're able to participate from anywhere, and also you're able to combine care work and work. Another thing we figured out is that supervisors tend to rather allow the participation in online courses than traveling to the host university. Also, we learned new techniques and tools, such as we're using right now. Also, online trainings allow lightweight implementation. The effort you have to make is just less. You don't have to book a room, you don't have to organize catering and the like. And you are able to focus on the course content much more. So these are the pros we found during our training sessions. But of course, there's also another side of the medal. we experienced that the short notice cancellation rates increased. We also learned from our participants that networking activities in informal exchange during the trainings for our PhD candidates fall short. Also, there's the risk of doing multiple things simultaneously, like following the course, checking your emails at the same time, or doing other things as well. For the instructors and trainers, it was more difficult to recognize when someone struggled with a task. So support was not as good as it used to be. Also, the participants lacked the contact to different cultures outside the training, and almost everyone suffered from Zoom fatigue. So I would like to present also our lessons learned and our conclusions. We think that SARS-CoV-2 changed the game really unforeseen with regards to the use of digital tools in teaching, and that both online and on-site teaching activities have pros and cons, as I've already pointed out before. And we will redesign our future trainings in such a way that they can be organized both online and on-site without the great effort it took us last year. Also, for doctoral candidates, it seems best and most feasible to have a combination of online and on-site teaching. And we also recommend dividing online teaching activities to not consist of more than 4 hours each. Also, we think there's no turning back to on-site teaching only, and I would like to hear about your experiences afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniela, for this nice presentation. Now, again, don't forget to submit your questions on the Q&A icon on the left. Now, our fourth speaker is Professor Pirjo Nuutila. I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name, Pirjo, from the University of Turku. Professor Pirjo Nuutila is head of the Graduate School of the University of Turku. She is an active and innovative developer of doctoral training. She has supervised 43 completed PhDs, served as a long-term director of Turku doctoral program in clinical research, and has been a treasury member of follow-up groups of about nearly 20 doctoral candidates. She is also high-rated professor at the PAT Center of the University of Turku. As a member of Doctoral Studies Working Group of the Coimbra Group and National Doctoral Training Network, Professor Nuutila has been enthusiastically developing doctoral training internationally and nationally. In addition, she was involved in a specific steering group of the Finnish National Board on Research Integrity, which lined the national-wide recommendations. Starting from 2010, while serving as vice rector of the University of Turku, Professor Nuutila has led and organized the establishment of a graduate school of the university. So Professor Nuutila will present us the COVID-19 and good practices for developing doctoral education. So Pirjo, the floor is yours.
So thank you very much for this opportunity to show you these results of our survey on COVID effects, and also talk about a bit good practices we have developed and used during this crisis of COVID here in our university. So the survey on the effects of COVID-19 pandemic was sent digitally in October 2020 to all 2,000 doctoral candidates in our university, and 630% of those replied and answered, and here you have the distribution of the answers to the questions. The first line here shows that a bit over half, 53% of all, felt that the pandemic had influenced somewhat or strongly negatively to the research work overall, shown here with pink or red color. And below that line are the answers to more specific questions concerning doctoral studies. We can see that those are more neutral ones than the one on the first line, and like marked with very light green or more green. And in fact, less than 40% of doctoral candidates felt that COVID pandemic had somewhat or strong negative effect what comes to the completed of doctoral studies, finishing of the degree, or receiving supervision. So as a whole, the negative effects of COVID-19 were milder than what we anticipated. And in fact, interestingly, you can see here this group of doctoral candidates. So they felt that COVID time had a positive, here marked with green, or somewhat positive, lighter green effect to research, completing the studies, or the degree, or to get supervision. So there is certainly many explanations for this rather neutral result of the survey and the inter-individual variability we noticed. One general explanation could be the good practices for developing doctoral education, which aim to prevent problems generally and were in use during this COVID crisis in our university. So here you can see what kind of practices we have here running. Those are here divided into three different areas. Starting from left, we are using standardized protocols for doctoral education, including remote administrative services and digitalized doctoral education processes, electronic forms and signatures, for example. Courses and dissertation defenses are possible to be conducted remotely. The supervision plan template is used in the application phase already, and it lists the equal rights and responsibilities for all doctoral candidates. Secondly, for prevention of conflicts, the supervision in supervision, we have procedural instructions, we have systematic digital annual progress monitoring, early support services, and good follow-up practices. In addition, well-being is supported broadly from tips and support services to peer support groups and services of study psychologists. So if you are more interested about these issues, how those are organized, so all material is available below the link. This online link you can find here. So that was my short talk. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy together with the head of the research Career Unit, Elise Pinto, to answer your potential questions.
Okay, thank you, Pirjo, for your nice presentation, and ask the audience to use again this Q&A tool to submit their questions, and we'll come back to these questions at the end of the session. So now let's come to the fifth and the last speaker of this session. This is Professor Romana Safir from the People's Friendship University of Russia. So Professor Romana Safir was awarded a PhD in chemistry in 1996 at the People's Friendship University of Russia. She was from 1996 to 2008 associate professor at the Department of Physical and Colloid Chemistry of the same university, and was from 2005 to 2008 vice dean of the Faculty of Science on Educational and Methodological Work. In 2008, she became professor at the same department and was from 2008 to 2014 Vice Dean of the Faculty of Sciences on Scientific Work and International Activities. So Professor Romana Safir is since 2014 head of the PhD and the residency departments of People's Friendship University of Russia. So the Professor Romana Safir presentation is about future of doctoral programs and research through the development of 4 large-scale interdisciplinary megaprojects. Romana, could you please open your microphone and camera? The floor is yours.
So, as all universities this 1 year and a half, we tried to survive in this COVID pandemic situation, but also it was some time that can be spent to examine and to study all our PhD programs. We know that PhD programs, doctoral programs, they are linked with the research subjects of the whole university. That's why examining the subjects and make some new ideas, it's the idea to change doctoral programs too. So now we are making the program by 2030 for the development of scientific research at our university, and our ideas is to make more multidisciplinary research areas. Such areas will move us to different consortiums between different faculties, different institutions, and not only inter-university, but also external variants. For example, one of the first huge cluster and is a multidisciplinary cluster that will combine medicine technologies, mathematical modeling, and chemistry. For example, is the idea to develop at our university the translation medicine research and educational cluster and conducting scientific registration preclinical and registration clinical studies. It's also will include, we try to do it, to create mathematical models of translational technologies for medicine, including pharmaceutical and chemical aspects. So it will be for our doctoral students, the idea is to make materials for diagnostics and therapy and modern diagnosis methods of pharmaceutical development. Also, we're speaking about application of metabolomic and biobanking tools of pharmacy in medicine. Mathematical modeling can be applied in different spheres, such as methods of radiation and radionuclide therapy in oncology, in malignant neoplasm and gastrointestinal tract. So such applications now we think will be very interesting for future and new wave in doctoral studies research. Another aspect, it's human science, it's cultural dialogue, cross-cultural communication, and including, for example, comparative studies of social transformation and cross-cultural communication. It's another rather huge cluster that combines social narrow and media linguistics as a platform for the development of communication and international area. Third cluster is about great economy and sustainable development. For example, including smart urban nature, smart food, green energy, high technology in the service of ecology. So the ideas and our task that we want to increase and to reach in 2030, they're on the second slide. And among all these interesting and huge demands, I can express only what is concerning our PhD defenses of theses after graduation of our PhD students. Now we have at the approximate 40% of those who defend their theses after or in 1 year after graduation. And the idea is to make our PhD educational process more effective and to reach more than 65% of defense theses by 2030. Speaking about this task is really is really high. We also make the analysis how did the pandemic influences our doctoral education, and it's very interesting for me to mention that previous speakers from University of Turku, we have similar results at our audience, and also it's shows that if we speak about the research problems, also our students, they had them, and we have this influence, negative influence this year and maybe next years, because something was stopped. But speaking about maybe methods of education, all universities improved, I think, them because of the necessary digitalization and new methods, more effective to do some things in a short time. So here you can see our results, and speaking about the idea to defend their dissertation, their thesis, more than 4 of our, so 75% of our students, our graduates from this year, are desired to have their defense in shortest time. So this is my short report. If you have questions, please write about our programs or about our questionnaire. It's rather long, but here I can show you only 4 aspects because it was we need to do only 2 slides. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's unexpected. I think Mossadegh has a technical issue, so it's my privilege to completely not prepared to become the new chair, but it's an extremely easy work because there is a lot of question actually in the Q&A section. So until Mossadegh comes, I am just having the pleasure asking the question. We have very little time, so it was wonderful to see that everybody was so short in the presentation, so please be shorter with even the answers. So first question comes by our colleague John Kremers, I think asking Javier, do you offer training to students on how to make a good thesis thread?
On this first occasion, we did not provide any formal training to the PhD candidates, but for the next edition of the contest, we are planning a small course focused on these Twitter threads, using the Twitter threads that has been developing this first session as the material for the next edition.
Wonderful. Next question goes to Ann Hutz. Do you differentiate between joint and double degrees?
Yes, thank you, Alexander. And as you said, we don't have much time, so I won't be able to solve this problem here and now. It's indeed one of the tricky questions all the time. What do we mean exactly when we call something a joint degree or a double degree? The terminology is not always unambiguous. So that's why I referred to the degree we deliver as the jointly awarded degree. And as far as the terminology joint and double is concerned, we consider a joint degree the outcome of a jointly supervised PhD track that results in one diploma document. The double degree is the same thing, but it results in 2 diploma documents, and they cross-reference to each other. And that indeed is one of the things that you must clarify before you start with processing the whole thing. So it's a difficult thing, but it's a work in progress.
Thank you very much. And by the way, this topic will also be discussed tomorrow in the session on collaboration doctoral education, and is also discussed on our thematic peer group on Code to Tell. So also keep this question and join the debate tomorrow where we can follow on it. Another question for Anne, and the one by Sarah Patrick, is: do you develop projects with the consortium of partner universities, or do you also consider research proposals from applicants?
Yes, this question is a reference to the flagship initiative that I presented, the Global PhD Program. And this is indeed limited to the consortium that was on the screen. And we select projects on the basis of a competitive call. But KU Leuven has a large and a long-standing tradition of joint doctorates. And these GPPs are, at this point in time, about 50 joint doctorates that are running, but overall we have about 500 joint doctorates running, and those other joint doctorates came from competitive applications by individual researchers. So it is indeed possible, but it's not possible within the context of the program that I presented.
Okay, thank you. Now the next question from Sarah Patrick is also for Ann, and also will be probably discussed tomorrow as well and in the future. Is the Global PhD Program or EUA Europa referenced on the PhD certificate?
Right, so I can be very brief there as well. On the official diplomas, there's no option to add anything to the document. So on the official diploma, there's no reference to any of the programs. But for the UNA HERDOC initiative, we are developing an additional certificate that those students who took the training within the UNA HERDOC program receive on top of their regular diploma.
Okay, that's maybe a question also to the other participants, because this is something always discussed also when it comes to co-tutel. How many in your institutions is it this kind of extra diplomas you get besides the doctorate, which are more flexible? Is this common, or does it exist or not? Somebody of the other participants could say something about that.
So at least in Turku University, we don't have that kind of nearly not at all. So we have some co-tutel agreements and that kind of stuff, but
okay, so I think it will be a discussion we can also follow tomorrow. Let's go to the next question, and this is going to Turku from Lynn Janusz. So now, can you give more details about the psychological support programs or activities that you mentioned?
Yeah, this was mentioned here because it was for those ones who are on grants at the moment. So that especially for those ones. So of course, for those ones who have on salary positions, so they have also access to, as staff has access to that kind of services. But this was especially for those ones who are on grants. And then somebody was asking about whether our digital system is working. I understand it, so at least. So in fact, this system was developed by a researcher of the Inform Technology department and some years ago, and it was shown to this audience in Tallinn annual meeting some years ago. So then it was in the starting phase, and from that on we have developed it more, and we are very pleased with that at the moment. When I'm reading these questions which are unanswered so far, so there was one I missed perhaps. So it was this that dealing with conflicts question, and that new instructions were taken in use around 1 year ago, or a bit less than 1 year ago, and I think it had already helped a lot.
Alexander?
So concerning this issue, so we have you can find it from the web page with details, but we have done this kind of structure, who's gonna do what in what kind of situations, and that has helped a lot already, and we are very happy with that. That's what was taken in use less than 1 year ago.
So Romana just wrote in the chat when it comes to joint degrees that you have if I understand rightly, double degrees where you have 2 defense, 2 diplomas, 2 degrees. How does this work, and why should somebody do that?
Maybe I'll explain because we have a joint program, joint PhD program, and in this case, it's one defense, and this is mentioned where, at what territory it will be at our university or at our partners' university in the agreements between these universities, and also it's one commission, commission that listen and meet this defense. Program can be one and the same. It may be joint program that a part of research and disciplines are in one university, another part in another university. Also, everything can be mentioned in the agreement and individual plan of our doctoral student. So we have such examples, and if we are speaking about double degree, it's more easy variant, because you have a program in one university, program in another university. You can use co-tutel, or only not the agreement of joint program, but the agreement of 2 supervisors, one supervision in one university and another supervisor in the university partner. So in this case, we have the defense, for example, at our university, and in 1 month or 2 months, also can be everything be mentioned in the agreement in another university. And our student and graduate will have in this case 2 diplomas and 2 different degrees. For example, PhD of university in France and PhD of Roden University as at our university. So it works, but also the idea is of good agreement, speaking about joint program, or co-tutel, speaking about co-supervision. So, but we have such examples with now we have for tutel more than 46 agreements with different universities.
Okay, I don't know if Mossadegh still can talk. Otherwise, we are very nearly finished to the session of today. So first of all, it's a good start talking about co-tutel, because we will follow with this also tomorrow. However, before, we are going to have a keynote on University 2030 about the vision for universities. So think about your vision you have for the future, so we can start with the exchange about that. Actually, we would have been now in Finland, and I'm sure Pirjo could tell us what we are missing by not being in Finland and what for great conference dinner we are missing. However, we are going to be in 2 years in Lahti at the Lappeenranta University of Technology and the University of Helsinki. So we have 2 years to think about the great food we are getting and the long night we are enjoying, or the long day. By saying this and not being not on time while everybody else has been so much on time, we would like, and I'm sure in the name of Mossadegh, thank you very much for this second day, for this session, for the speakers. And we are very much looking forward to meeting you tomorrow in the 3rd day of the online EUA-CDE Annual Meeting. And by saying that, have a good evening, enjoy, and goodbye.